Cool. So today on the New How podcast, we have Adam, Luca, and Patrick. Welcome, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Great to be here.
Yeah. And we originally connected because I think, Adam, you had emailed about you're coming to Philadelphia, opening up a kava restaurant, bar, something. You were bringing kava to the city of Philadelphia.
Yep, exactly.
And specifically the name Old City Kava Co. So talk a little bit about kava. What is kava? If you had to, again, someone that's never drank it or tried it and is hopefully about to.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is kava and why should I be drinking it?
Yeah, so it's interesting that you asked that. Not many people in the Northeast of the United States really know what kava is yet. So we're coming into a completely new market. Kava is really popular down in Florida, where it has a lot of its kava bars in the United States. But it's such a new industry that not many people know what kava is. So to kind of take a step back, kava is a root of a plant that comes from Fiji and other Pacific islands like Tonga, Vanuatu, some of those islands. And it's been drank in those cultures for hundreds of years. It's actually a focal point of their like cultures. They have like tribal ceremonies where they'll come, the entire village will come together and they'll drink kava and celebrate. And their entire culture like revolves around kava, and there's a lot of properties that they enjoy it for, primarily for its anxiety reduction properties. It really helps.
Everyone's got some of that.
Yeah, man, it really helps with calming people's nerves. And in modern society, especially in the United States, I feel like that's an issue facing so many people. So like I said, not many people know what kava is. Our whole goal with our business is to spread awareness about kava and some of the other products we sell. And it is a great alternative to alcohol. Like, at least for me, and I know Luca personally, like after we graduated college, we kind of lost an interest in the nightlife scene, getting drunk with friends and all the toxicity that is associated with drinking culture. We found that kava bars down in Florida, where we became exposed to these things, people would come and socialize and hang out, but there's not the toxicity in the culture of alcohol present in these kava bars. So we really loved it for that, and obviously the properties of kava, like the anxiety reduction. Like if you have like a presentation or a meeting, like drink a little bit of kava before it, and it'll help calm your nerves. And yeah, there's a lot of great properties like that. But that's why I like kava personally. But there's a whole host of different benefits that people will drink kava.
So you mentioned it's not really seen in the Northeast. Are you guys all from Florida, or talk about maybe where you guys are all from, and have you been doing this in the past? Patrick, if you want to.
Yeah, I'm from Philadelphia, born and raised, and actually, Adam introduced me to kava, I think probably freshman year of college. We're at PJ Wellahans in Bluebell. And he's like, yo, there's this tea that you have to try.
Did he grab your beer and just throw it off the table so you need to drink kava?
Grab me by the shoulder. And I gave it a shot, and he was right. It's awesome. And got to go down to Florida at some point, check out some of the local kava bars, and I mean, it's really, really cool. And it's a shame that it's only really in a couple states as of yet. And so our goal is to really kind of expand it into Philadelphia and hopefully take off from there. Is
this the first kava bar in Philadelphia that you're aware of, or is there other
competitors? Yeah, so there's two other locations that sell kava, but I would argue that they're not like core kava bars. Like if you go down to Florida and check out the kava bars, these businesses are like actual bars. It looks like an alcohol bar would look, but doesn't have the alcohol, obviously. That concept has not hit Philadelphia yet. There's a couple places that sell kava, like cafes and whatnot, but we're going to be the first like core kava bar concept coming in.
So this is more of a destination too. So you go there, you drinking kava, you're meeting other people. It's kind of, so it's almost like at least I think it was like a non-alcoholic beverage, but is it kind of like if you drink enough of them, you get messed up, or is it like?
Yeah, so there's varying effects. So kava is the core product we sell. Kratom is also another product we sell. And people we found really like Kratom because it is a productivity enhancer. So we actually find that a lot of people will come into our bar during the day with their laptops, and they'll come and do work because it helps you focus. It helps, it's stimulating. Another effect, it's got a mild like mood elation effect. So people really love it for that. Like you'll start to feel good, but you don't get like any of the brain fog or anything that you would by drinking excessive amounts of alcohol or anything like that.
And maybe look, where do you source this from? Like, where does this come from? Like, are you guys really getting it from Fiji? Like, bringing it over? How's that? Talk to me about that a little bit.
Yeah, so there's a bit of a mix. There are distributors mostly based in Florida that sell both kava and kratom, and because they're complementary products and they're typical products of kava bars, they're usually sold by similar distributors. But you can also go direct to the source and work with farmers for kava in Fiji, Vanuatu, Tonga, and for kratom in Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand. And so, to be honest, from a business perspective, we go with highly vetted vendors that make sense for us, like cost wise. Sometimes that's distributors and sometimes that's going straight to the source. And because of the kind of nascency of the industry and the volatility with like being able to consistently receive shipments from somewhere like Fiji, and also how business is conducted there, which is much more on island time and handshakes and stuff, and is more relaxed. You kind of have to try to manage inventory, and you're often like supplementing from other vendors because you had, this shipment didn't make it at this time. But yeah, we are, no matter where we're getting it from, whether it's like distributors who practice good manufacturing practices in Florida, no matter if it's them or the actual source, it's all coming from either the Pacific Islands for kava or Southeast Asia for kratom.
So I gotta know. So out of the three, who was like the first into kava? Was it you?
It was me and him in tandem. We owned a kava bar franchise down in Florida, which is how we got introduced to the industry. And obviously, I grew up in Philadelphia, and Pat was a longtime friend and colleague of mine. And once I told him about kava and kratom, he was super passionate as well. Also shared a passion for entrepreneurship, so it made sense to bring him in for this venture. And now it's the three of us. We're all equal partners trying to build a portfolio in Philadelphia, and that's basically the game plan from here on out.
Why are you so passionate about kava? Why aren't you passionate about caffeine? Or why aren't you passionate about like what really does it for you with kava?
I'd say I'm passionate about both. I used to be passionate about alcohol. I'm not anymore. This fits into the portfolio of things that I care to consume much more. The way we became aware of this is other friends in college who had visited some kava bars in Florida kind of made us aware. And upon trying the products, the kava and the kratom, even in the form that we were given them, which was not great, very powdery, no like flavor enhancement, no nothing, kind of very simple. We really liked the effects and noticed the community that you feel being in kava bars, which is unanimous across all kava bars in the industry. I think they're very much community focused, and it kind of became a third space for us to be able to, simultaneously hang out with friends outside of our houses or the library when we were in college, or our office when we were working after college. And like Adam was saying, the products in certain lower doses have very good productivity enhancing effects. So it's a great place to get some work done, take a meeting, also be there with your friends, hanging out, socializing. When you're at a kava bar, often people are really open and okay with and really like when you come up and talk to them. So it's a way to meet new people. It's much more chill than being out at a bar. It doesn't close early like a cafe. Plus, there's more options. Like, not all kava bars do this, but we have a pretty extensive like caffeine menu too, with coffees and even infusions of coffees with some of the kava and kratom drinks.
How long do the effects take to?
Usually 20, 30 minutes.
All right.
Yeah.
So yeah,
we gotta try.
these.
I want to try it because I've never tried it. I'm a type 1 diabetic. I'm looking here, like the carbs, like 13 carbs in this can, really not that bad. Sugars, 10 grams for a can like this. That's some sort of, like, to me, I would drink this as a type 1 diabetic.
Okay, that's good to hear. And let me explain the difference. There's like two core products.
I'm gonna try because I want to see the effects, because I want to talk about it.
What they say in Fiji is bula.
Yeah,
bula.
Bula. Cheers, guys. Cheers.
Yeah.
Bula.
But basically, this is a drink from a vendor that we like, and it's so kava and kratom are very bitter substances to begin with. They're powders, and they're just extremely bitter. There's very few people who I've introduced to kava and kratom, just the base like substance without any additives, that actually like the taste of it. It's so bitter that it's off-putting. So with this drink, there's a lot of added like flavors and whatnot to kind of mask that.
This also gives you a sense that it kind of, not saying it tastes like alcohol, but it still has like that like it's a seltzer a little bit. It's still, it's not just like a juice. if it's more than that. Like it's, but I get the sense when you mentioned bitter and I tasted it, you can tell obviously some of the sugars help block out some of that bitterness that I'm sure the root itself, or if you were just take it kava by itself, it would be.
That was one of the biggest challenges when we first opened up our first location in Florida, is trying to figure out how to mask that bitterness, because we found that people who are already familiar with kava and kratom, they become like acquainted to the taste. They don't mind it, but for people who haven't tried kava and kratom before, it's very tough to get them to try these products with them tasting so like horrible, just the basic substance. So we found we tested like different recipes for weeks, months before we first opened, to try and mask that taste, to try and hit that customer profile of people that, you know, haven't tried it and might not be inclined to try it unless it tasted good.
I gotta know, some of these labels on the back, talk to me. It says 18 plus. Is that true? We gotta be 18 to drink this?
Yeah. So kava is it's not technically a regulated industry here in the U.S. So there is some self-regulation as a result of that. I think everybody in the kava industry should be selling it to 18 plus. Like I said, it's a very new industry, so it's not too well understood. There's not a ton of like clinical trials and studies about that stuff. So we just recommend that people do their diligence. They wait till they're 18 plus to try it, and they try it in smaller doses at first to see how it impacts your body, because like I said, everyone's different and everyone reacts with things differently.
So at your spot, when you open up in Old City here, will you serve out of cans? Is it like, do you make it kind of out of a can? You know, talk to me a little bit about what it'll be like in there, because I get that, like, this is good. You can buy a case of this, keep it in the fridge, have one a day at certain times. It helps. But like, if I come to your kava bar now, like, talk to me about that experience with kava.
Yeah. So we have you heard of a percolator before? It's it's a contraption for brewing coffee. We've kind of repurposed that for brewing kratom, and we filter out that powder that is the source of the bitterness and whatnot. And there's still some flavors in there resulting from that, but we filter out that powder and basically get our basic brew with the alkaloids extracted from the substances, and then we'll mix that with with different like Monin syrups or creamers or stuff like that, like anything that will add to the flavor profile of the drink. So we'll get that base brew out of the percolator, and then we'll mix that from there and kind of mix and match and make different drinks for people.
Nice.
Yeah. So just to follow up on that too, our menu is kind of centered around these two core products, kava and kratom, and we have house brews of each of those. And he just described the way to make kratom, the way that you would prepare kava traditionally, and in the best way to enhance the effects is it comes in a kind of medium grind coarse powder. You put that powder in a strainer bag, and in a large bowl or whatever you have, you knead the kava into the water, and that releases the kavalactone, which is the compound that interacts with you and gives you the nice feeling. And so basically, we have a bunch of different mixed drinks on the menu that you can choose from, and as from there you can choose, do you want kava in it or kratom in it or both? And so from there you kind of get like a really comprehensive. We have a kind of set list of mixed premium drinks. You can add kava or kratom to those, but you can also, like, if you're a consumer like me, I don't prefer a bunch of additives or sweeteners or any kind of flavor enhancers. I would rather just drink it in the bitter form so that I avoid those things. So then we have an option.
And describe real quick again, the kava and kratom, talk to me about the differences between the two. Yeah.
So let me just try to give viewers something to picture. Kava is the root of a pepper plant from the Pacific Islands. So they cultivate this pepper plant, take the root off, dry it, grind it into a powder. You then have kava powder. Kava is the one that is more relaxing, is really great, a great social lubricant, kind of loosens you up. It's used as a sleep aid sometimes. It really helps with anxiety. And then on the kratom side, kratom is a tree. Kratom is a tree related to the coffee plant, and the leaves are where you get the powder or the effect. So the leaves, it's grown, cultivated, the leaves are dried, ground into powders, and there's different strains that fall, the effects of which fall anywhere on a spectrum of like energizing to very relaxing. And so in smaller doses, they're all more on the energizing side, but in higher doses, they're all like very relaxing and very give you an effect that you can like really feel. And so the differences there are Kratom is the one that's more productivity forward in small doses and is a really great stimulant for that. And not only a substitute for coffee, like also a complementary product to coffee. Kava is if you're really just trying to loosen up, hang out. There's actually physical muscle relaxation effects to it too. And Kratom is consumed more for like the productivity side and anti-anxiety and depression and physical pain relief,
Is
like
it
analgesic effects.
Is it at the point yet, or maybe it's getting there because you guys are kind of spearheading the industry, seems like. Is it at the point where the cannabis industry is where you can now go to a dispensary in Colorado and say, I want to feel exactly like this, and there's a strain or there's some sort of, the mixture of that cannabis plant is for this type of feeling? Is it going to get there, or is it there currently?
I'd say with Kava, there is a spectrum and there's different geographical elements that make different Kava from different places have different effects, but the spectrum of those effects is not vastly different.
Gotcha.
So they're going to have different effects, but it's all pretty contained. It's all pretty similar.
Yeah.
With Kratom, we're more in that direction. There's three main types of veins, meaning the veins on the leaf, the color of them. There's white, green, and red, white being the most energizing, green being like halfway between, and red being the most relaxing. But within those, cultivators have their own cultivars, like varieties of each of those. So there are a lot of strains. I'd say the supposed difference in like feeling the effect as compared to with like recreational marijuana and the different strains, it's just not as direct. Like it's not at least to me, in my own experience, I can't tell the difference nearly as well, even though we are slightly headed in that direction.
Can you tell the difference between the productivity cretin, right?
Yeah.
Versus the Kava root?
Absolutely.
Like you can tell those, but like
Absolutely.
what I'm drinking here, is this calm, relaxed, like good, like what am I drinking here? Is this the Kava?
Yeah,
That's Kava.
that's the Kava.
Gotcha.
You'll feel like a mild, like relaxing effect probably in like 20 to 30 minutes. And Kava is really interesting. It's actually the only substance known to man that has a reverse tolerance. So the more you drink it as time progresses, the less quantities it takes to feel the same effect. There's no
Is that good for business?
Yeah, technically not good for business, but I like the little facts about like Kava like that. Like it's just so interesting to me that there's a product out there that has properties like that. Like I didn't even think that was physically possible.
Nothing ever is like that, I feel like.
Yeah. So
it's always you need more and more and more of something.
Yeah.
So let's dive into the business structure, because obviously you guys are all third partners. Talk to me like you're getting ready to open this new location in Old City. What do you guys like? Are you hiring people? Talk a little bit about like the background, like, or are you guys all taking 8-hour shifts and splitting up the day? What are you guys doing? Talk to me a little bit about that. And as like business owners, what's going through your head as you're getting ready to open a location?
Yeah, so there's we all have our different strengths and weaknesses. So we play to those strengths. We pretty much delegate the roles that we all are great at. So I'll handle like some of the employee stuff. Like I'm really passionate about managing employees. I get a lot of fulfillment out of that part of the job. So I kind of lean into that, and we'll spearhead the hiring of employees, the vetting of them, and all that stuff. Whereas Luca he really knows about the products better than anybody else I know. So as far as like sourcing,
I see him like magnifying glass on like the veins of the leaf, going, "That's the one." Calling Adam, I'm sending it back in a bin.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, we all have our respective strengths and weaknesses, and we'll play to those. And we're still in the very early stages of this location, so we're in the process of securing our lease at the moment. And once we get a lease signed, we'll really hit the ground running with starting that process of hiring the employees. And as you know, we're working with Design Blends to build out the design of the place. And all that
once you get it locked in, we're going to design and make it beautiful.
Yeah, so we're super excited for that.
And I might another 10 minutes, I'll tell you if I want some of this included in the contract.
Something I would add to that quickly too is in the startup phase, we're all like working overtime on it. So Pat's the one with like a full-time other career at the moment. We used to, but we left those when we sold our old company. But at the moment, it's like anything that needs to be done, it's us doing it. In terms of hiring employees, we'll build a team that anyone hired is going to be working in the bar itself as a kava tender. Imagine like a bartender.
Is that is like a barista, kava barista? Like
exactly.
Is there like a term for kava?
Kava tender.
Kava tender.
Yep.
Just basically a bartender, but with kava.
I like that.
And one way that I think we think a little differently than the rest of the industry about this is we see those positions as they're equally as much sales positions and educational positions as they are operational. Like, we can train anyone to make the drinks on the menu. They're nice, but they're not super complicated. You don't need a mixologist certification for it or anything, but you need to obviously be able to make them well, make them to customer taste and preference, but you really need to be able to explain the products to people who don't understand them, because especially in this market, that's going to be almost everyone that we haven't brought in by word of mouth.
I mean, a lot of businesses that are pushing the edge of something, whether it's in beverages, technology, renderings, right? Like, it's always education, because most time you find that people find you, they're like, I kind of think I need that, but I have no clue how it works or what it does for you. You know, and I definitely see this product as like, I mean, I'd never heard of it until you reached out. You're like, I got this kava thing. I'm like, kava? What's kava? But there's a whole area of the US right now that knows what it is seeing the benefits of it. And it's like, now you're going to have to educate everyone in the Philadelphia marketplace. How do you do that? How do you do that at a grand level? That's, I guess, the challenge for you entrepreneurs over here.
Awareness is going to be one of the biggest hurdles.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we found that like when you're marketing at the first like couple months of this business, word of mouth is really the most effective way. And unfortunately, there's not really much we can do to spread word of mouth. So it's really important for us to just get people in the door, to bring their friends, to just spread by nature of people just reaching out to their network and it's spreading like wildfire that way. That's really the only way this thing can organically grow. And yeah, we can do marketing strategies to kind of get awareness out there, but word of mouth is really the only way that this industry has been shown to grow at the moment. Now, I'm sure there's other ways to supercharge that growth, but it's still a very nascent industry. And yeah.
Luca, you mentioned you guys sold another company prior. Is that Nectar Labs?
Yeah.
Is that what that is? Can you talk a little bit maybe about, you know, I think you guys found that in like 2019. Talk about maybe what that was and why you exited it and how it's kind of benefiting what you guys are about to jump into here.
Yeah, so I'll talk a little background on it first. We we opened our doors in January 2020. So we started working on it probably at the end of 2018, maybe 2019, somewhere in there. I was finishing graduate school at University of Miami. Adam was working in finance in Philly. We had two other partners. So instead of a three-way, it was a four-way, not quite equal, but four-way split. It worked out really well because three of us had full-time jobs and one didn't know what he wanted to do after school. And so he was the one who could take on the boots on the ground for the market that we selected, which was Naples, Florida, which was his home as well. So we had a connection to there. And everyone else was working many hours on this, but just remotely and when we could. That was our first venture into this industry, and you know it was very successful for us and we really enjoyed it, even though we opened like a month and a half before COVID hit. Probably the worst time you could ever ask to start a small business. But I mean, we were on top of it, but we were also lucky in many ways that it all worked out. And the products kind of sell themselves once people try them because they really like them. And Florida wasn't too harsh on any kind of lockdowns or anything. The reason we ended up getting out of that, which by the time we got out of it, it had 3 locations, 2 were owned and 1 was a franchisee, a licensee technically, that we had signed on, and they were all in Southwest Florida, and the brand was doing really well. And candidly, like the reason we sold out is because there was a differences of vision between the partners, and we weren't able to grow the business organically the way we wanted to anymore. And so we sought out to do our own thing, and all of the learnings and experience from that, like starting these bootstrapping it, really like working hard to do it with a budget that everyone would tell you is undoable. We're not having to do that anymore, but taking all the learnings away from that, coming in, like having it fully capitalized, still trying to stay within budget and be like financially prudent, but not having to work within the confines of, we literally have nothing else, nor do we really have many people on the ground. Coming in with a better understanding of what people are looking for, what works in terms of introducing them to the products and then keeping them. I mean, it wasn't what we wanted originally to exit that business. We would have, like Adam and I, we would have rather pronate a little more, but this is just one of many lessons learned that, like,
Of course.
you know, people can change. People can change what they, you know, their priorities and preferences with how you're going to allow the direction of the business to go. It's not always going to be aligned with you. And so then you have to figure out, are you okay with where it's going now? Or do you want to just kind of start the slate clean, do something new? And I feel like with part of our consideration was like, our next venture, we're coming in with like this experience, and which, like, honestly, I know it's not that much experience. You talk about people who've been in the same industry for 50 years, but being such a new industry, having not many players, and us having done what we did, it really gives us like a leg up in starting this and trying to develop a new market. We were going into a developed market there, and now we're trying to develop it for ourselves, and that comes with pros and cons.
Out of three, who's the visionary? If you had to pick one, like who's the one that's like looking 5 years ahead for Old City Kava Co?
I'd say,
or who does it the most?
I mean, we all do it.
It's a tough one.
Yeah,
I feel like
I don't know if there's one of us that's. I mean, we all feed off each other's like strengths and weaknesses. So I don't know if there's one of us that is, I guess, the visionary. I think we're all visionaries in our own like ways. But yeah, we meet very frequently and strategize on. Like, we already have plans for how we can get to 2, 3, 4 locations.
So maybe that's a better question. So if I said you came back in 2028 and we sat down to another podcast, where's Old City Kava at that point?
Yeah, so at least for me, my goal is to build a portfolio of kava bars. I'm super passionate about this industry, and you asked this question earlier, but for me personally, I love speaking to the customers that come into our kava bars. I've seen these products help people in so many different ways. Like I spoke to a woman a couple months ago. She tried 40 or 50 different things to help her get to sleep at night. Nothing worked. She finally tried kava, and she can finally sleep at night and actually get a good night's sleep and function as a normal human being. So talking to people and just hearing about those experiences, it was enough to convince me to build my career in this space. Like, just seeing that and how these products can help people, that's enough for me to go full into the industry. And I would like to get a portfolio of kava bars so we can just have as much impact on as many people as possible. But yeah, 10 years from now, I think kava and kratom are really going to take the US by storm. And I think being in this industry so early, we really have a crazy opportunity ahead of us. I would like to lean into that as much as we possibly can.
Do you foresee, you guys, obviously you're going to be brewing in the stores, do you foresee distribution of your products? Like, do you foresee, like,
100%.
I walk into a Starbucks, I can get a coffee, or I can pick up a Mitra 9?
Yeah, after we talk about distribution a lot, be it like raw materials product or bottled canned beverages, trying to get into like wellness stores, grocery stores, and everything. That vertical integration for us would be very lucrative, and we're working on something in that space now that we'll talk about next time we get together. One thing we always talk about too that isn't as much like, it's not a trackable like business goal, but just continuing to be advocates, continuing to educate people. So like, you inviting us on here is great for that. We appreciate that. Just getting the word out, letting people try the products, trying not to sell it to them. We don't need to, frankly. It sells itself, and if people don't like it and it's not for them, well, that's great too. There's alternatives. But we try to work with trade associations, because like, kava is recognized as a supplement and is fine, and there's no regulatory issues around it or anything. Kratom has a bad rap in some places, but we try to stay active within consumer advocacy groups that are currently, like, as we speak, regulating this. There's a Kratom Consumer Protection Act that they're working on that's been passed in like 11 states. It's going to be, it's on the floor in like 20 more. Nice. That basically bans adulteration, any kind of like bad actors in these types of markets. It bans synthesizing of alkaloids. And it requires good manufacturing standards. So as part of all this, however we decide to take the business, which growing locations and distribution are definitely on our radar and things we're working on. It's just continuing to try to make this normal and accepted and mainstream, because we really believe it should be.
And you guys drink the products every day, I'm assuming?
Not every day, but a couple times a week.
Pretty regularly, but not every day. Like everything, we tell all our customers, everything in moderation. Like Kava and Kratom, if you drink a glass every couple days or anything, there's no side effects as a result of that. But if you're drinking 4 or 5 cups of Kava every day, your liver is going to be processing like a lot, and you could have potential side effects as a result of that. So we tell our customers everything in moderation, just like everything, use your brain. That's just the logical thing.
I mean, I can tell you, I definitely feel a little more relaxed after drinking this.
Okay.
Are you all the way through?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, it's really good. You can definitely tell it's not powder, but you can definitely tell like it's a little thicker at certain points when you're taking certain sips of it. But like, I guess this was like, felt like cotton candy or something. Or
So question for you, did you feel your tongue get numb at all?
a little bit.
So yeah, that's one of the interesting things about Kava. People will like that it kind of has a tongue numbing effect.
Yeah,
it lasts about 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's very, very brief, but
I wasn't going to say anything about that, but I just wanted to make sure. I just wanted to make sure that glad it's this product. I was worried something was wrong with me.
I also want to say super quick that just to make sure everyone's clear, these are not our products. Yep. Shout out Mitra 9, they're great. We brought these in so that we could all try something, and we'll invite Brian back to the bar to try our actual products instead of trying to brew them here. But yeah, we like these. They're a great intro into the products. So
the another question I have for you guys, just obviously you guys are full time right now into kind of like, talk to me a little bit about work-life balance, how you're trying to balance getting this new business up and running versus personal life or behind the scenes or staying healthy. Like, talk a little bit about what you've found that works for you.
Yeah, at least for me personally, this is my main priority right now. Luca and I were fortunate enough to sell out of our old company, and we got a pretty nice sale proceeds from that. So we're able to live comfortably and have the freedom to open up this thing and take our time to do it right. So we don't really feel like, at least me personally, my work-life balance is amazing right now, because we were able to successfully sell our old business and kind of have a little more freedom and money to do whatever we want next. That's kind of made my work-life balance amazing. But when Luca and I first started this thing, we were working a consulting job. We were working 70, 80-hour weeks for that alone, and then doing the Kava bar stuff on the side. So at that point in time, work-life balance was miserable. But I feel like in entrepreneurship, you need to do that at a certain point in time. Just invest in yourself to get to that point. But once you can actually prove out a concept and whatnot, your life gets a little bit better, and you can actually have some free time. That's what I've found personally.
I have a pretty similar story to him, but I will say that investing that time in working insane hours in mergers and acquisitions, advisory, and also trying to start this was worth it, and it was necessary because we started that business with all of our own capital and with no debt. And there's nothing, to me, there's nothing better than that. I'm not on the hook for someone else's money. And like at the time we were bootstrapping with all that we could scrape together, but without putting in those hours, we would have had many like lessons learned gone in terms of, because we worked on small and medium-sized business transactions, so sales. So that applied even indirectly to a lot of what we do, but more than anything, it was like, we just had to do that to make this happen. There was no option. Yeah. And I think a lot of people are concerned about that. Like they know they want to do something, they have an idea, and they maybe don't want to take that leap because they're like, I'm already so busy. Like, yeah, life is always busy. Even when you're not working those hours, like you feel busy. And so like, just push through it.
Have you figured out what's ignited that? Like, is it your why? Like what's ignited you to say, like, I got to work these 80 hours, but then also I got to build this Kava thing on the side. Like what's like, why?
For me, it was love of the products. And then once it became like capital at risk, it was to protect my money and my financial interests too. Yeah. Like, honestly, those are the big ones for me.
For me, it's, I grew up in an entrepreneurial household, and, so I was kind of raised with the mindset, be your own boss. Yep. And, I've worked corporate jobs, I've worked at startups, and, I've worked on stuff for myself. And it's always more gratifying when you kind of set the path yourself. And in this case, getting to work with two friends is amazing.
Have you found working with friends to be hard?
It can be.
It can be.
How do you separate it? I do it with one of my best man at my wedding. I was the best man at his, Scott, my architecture partner. Yeah, how do you do it?
Well, I will say
Curious.
with these guys, we're not open yet, and there's many years ahead. but
Hasn't gotten hard yet.
yeah.
Exactly.
But as long as your partners are like honest people, good, kind people, they're accountable. It isn't hard. It hasn't been hard with us yet. We've had other ventures in the past, and yeah, it can be really hard. It can be really hard when someone decides that their interests are like more important than someone else's, or you know, anything can happen. But I would say if you're real good friends, you're both honest with yourselves and each other, and you're accountable, and you've set expectations from the start. I think it's amazing, even though it's also not worked out for us before. But when it does, I think it's even better having experienced both.
So I'm gonna ask the three, and I think I kind of have your answer already, but we'll start with Patrick. I got to know the first time you made $100,000, or when you were like, you felt that level of impact to your bottom line.
Absolutely. So I've been working in some regard or another since I was probably like 7 or 8 years old. I used to buy 100 pretzels from Philly Soft Pretzel Factory for $30. I'd go around to yard sales, sell them, one for 60 cents, two for $1, and I made bank.
Yeah.
I did really well. And after that,
Hey, it's the pretzel man. He's here again.
I tried to sidle up next to the soda guy.
Yeah.
But
So you had it from the beginning. You had
just always trying to get that extra buck. I would watch dogs, kids, house sit, water plants, everything. I don't know if there was ever a time where I wasn't working in some fashion or another. And then after that, I got into sales, and I did really well in sales. And so I'd say that's probably where I got around, 100K.
Yeah, obviously, if you're selling pretzels at 8 years old, I mean, that's earlier than me. I didn't really start my entrepreneurial endeavor until I was like 11 or 12. But I was selling Counter-Strike servers.
No way.
wow.
For video games. Yeah, I used to
Yeah.
play Counter-Strike professionally in my early teens.
Nice. Another gamer.
Another gamer. Yeah. But yeah, I was getting a commission from Hyped Gaming I used to work for.
No
I remember
way.
they used to give me like PayPal distributions for like how many, because back then, like servers, like gaming servers aren't like they are today. You just don't log on, you're in a game with people. Like you had to connect to an IP address, and that IP address sometimes had a password because it might be locked or vice versa. But you sold those servers for gaming communities. So
That's not to go too off topic here, but I just have a similar story because I grew up overseas my whole childhood until college. And I loved competitive video games. So I would play like mostly Call of Duty and World of Warcraft. And I was really good at World of Warcraft in a like player versus player setting. And I used to, because my latency was so bad, like I'd be playing on 450 ping from Manila. It kind of like disqualified me from competing on the actual game tournaments, but I would compete on private servers and make PayPal money that I would then only be able to spend on the internet. But it was kind of similar to your server story. And then I guess, I would say my answer to the question is, if we're talking about like a one chunk, then we're talking about the sale. If we're talking about just earnings, working after school in mergers and acquisitions, like it's a lot of work, but you're rewarded. Let's just say that.
good.
Yeah, me and him, we used to have the same corporate job. We did the Kava Bar side business together, so our finances are pretty similar. So very, very similar path as Luca. Yeah.
What's been the biggest failure that you've experienced to date, or that you're comfortable talking about?
I can go first on this one.
It wasn't that the
So-
pretzels got stale, is it?
No. Pretzels never failed. So I started as an underwriter for insurance, and then I got into sales and the specialized sales. And along the way, I got an offer to work for a trucking startup company as the director of logistics. And so I worked there. I put, blood, sweat, and tears into that company. I was working 110 hours a week. It was insane. Put my life on hold. And unfortunately, it all came crumbling down, and they basically just went kaput.
Yeah.
And so I would say that was the biggest kind of failure, but it gave me so many life lessons.
Yeah.
I was able to learn, and that's
lot.
kind of what drove me to this. Is I was like, I kind of see where I could have stepped in and been like, no, this is what we can do to help us keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And not being an owner, I wasn't able to do that. You know, I could give opinions until the cows came home, but you know, it doesn't mean they're going to listen.
Mm-hmm.
So I really wanted to, then I was like, you know what, got to put my foot down. This is it. You know, talk to Adam, talk to Luca, and we're like, all right, let's do this.
Yep.
So, you know, failure turns into the greatest opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
I would say similar theme. My biggest failure, but can by all means be seen as a failure, but also not. And I would say this is surrounding the company that we started and sold. You know, having been friends with all the partners involved for many years and thinking, you know, we knew everyone very well,
Mm-hmm.
and getting into business together, just to have it get to a point where this thing that we built and bootstrapped and you know, we're growing organically very quickly, that we had vision and plans for, was something that we either needed to fight for legally or sell out. And like, while financially I don't consider it a failure at all, like we made out well, I see that as a failure, that we take lessons into the next opportunity. Mm-hmm. Like we were just talking about, how do you select people to work with, or how is it working with friends? It's not always great. But on the flip side, I tend to get the advice from people older than me on a daily basis to never go into business with your friends. And I don't agree with that. So like Pat's, it's like, yeah, in some ways this failed because we didn't see this through to the 20 years from when we started it that we were thinking about from the start. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, like financially, it wasn't a failure. It taught us a lot, and it gave us experience and knowledge and relationships to just leverage into the next thing. So I would say that.
Yeah, to piggyback off of what Lucas said, same biggest failure of mine is probably not still being with that company we started. Mm-hmm. That probably would have been my preference, to continue to grow that brand, and we'd be much further along that process than starting over and coming up to Philly to restart it. But I don't really see that as a failure, as Luca mentioned. Like there's so many lessons learned in that experience, and the lessons we learned from that, we didn't have adequate protections in our operating agreement with our first company. We realized what those protections were that we missed, and now we have that covered for this business. So I don't really see it as a failure. It's every failure you learn from, and you will succeed as a result of that. So it's not really a failure. It's just a lesson learned, I would say.
And one last thing on this topic that I forgot to mention that I think is interesting is, so yeah, this is our failure. We're not where we wanted to be with this, but we couldn't have done it any other way. There were no, like the reason this worked for us is because we had 3 people remotely working different consulting or finance jobs, and 1 person on the ground with nothing to do after school who was passionate about this, willing to work for sweat equity, willing to do things. And so we did what we had to do. Like that experience wouldn't exist. That company wouldn't exist if we wouldn't have done it. So even still, through all the quote unquote failure, it's like, I still don't feel like we shouldn't have done it.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's how you move ahead by failure. I mean, people think it's all
absolutely.
just like roses and sunshine and kava roots, right? Like going to the moon, but it's a lot of ups and downs the whole way. I mean, I feel like I got to go. My, probably the biggest failure I ever did was, not putting the right people in the right seats. Not, back to what I asked you guys, I will tell you, in my organization, I am the visionary. I am not the operations officer that I have upstairs, who's Scott. I'll never tell Scott how to draw a building. But I also, when I can focus fully on the 10-year vision of what Design Blends is, it allows us to get there that much quicker. And when he can focus on the operations, it allows that to be that much better. That's just my one advice to people. It's like, figure out the roles and who does what. If all 3 are always focusing on the vision, you're going to get there slower versus splitting that up. That's my opinion, at least. It's just what I've learned, because I've seen it firsthand, where I put somebody in a position I think can do the role, but they're also thinking about other stuff, and they don't fully focus on their task at hand, and they start doing things they shouldn't.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, and that's like the hardest part of being a leader, to be honest. For me, at least.
Do you run any businesses? Like, I'm just curious, like, do you guys have like a system you follow to like build your business, or like how do you like to-dos? Like, how do you manage like who's doing what this week?
Right now we have a task list. you know, and we kind of have them ranked in priority order. And then also, you know, who has, you know, what strengths do people hold? You know, is it finances? Is it talking? Is it legal jargon? Just we all have our own strengths and skills that we can bring to it. So we kind of divvied up like that. And then there's other things like logo creation that we can all focus on. And I know once we get our actual, you know, physical location, you know, it's going to more kind of separate into hard roles.
Yeah. And I'm feeling this more like this is great stuff.
Yeah,
I just want to side note back to this thing. Like, I can literally feel the difference from when I sat here down with the three of you versus now. I'm like,
just wait till you try Kratom. Kratom is more euphoric than kava. I don't know if you experience like slight mutilation or euphoria with the kava. That it's a very mild effect, but with Kratom, a lot of people like it for the euphoric feeling.
I want to try it for the productivity.
Yeah.
That's my 100% my main use of it.
But yeah, you'll have to try Kratom next. I think you'll like it more than kava. That's typically what we find with customers.
Thanks. So I want to do a wrap up. I want to go. We're gonna start with Luca first because I haven't started with you first. All right. I want like a one-liner for people that are about to jump into whatever they're jumping into. Like, what's the one-liner or one thing that you've learned through all your startups, your dispositions of companies, you know, to building new companies? Like, what's one thing that you would tell, you know, yourself 10 years ago?
I would say, and it's probably cliche and overused, but, and I'll make it a one-liner and then I might say a few more things, but I'd say follow your instincts or your gut, however you like to think about that. If you're someone who can honestly tell yourself you're hardworking, you're honest, you're accountable, you try to be a good person, I truly believe that, like, there are certain indicators that I could have had to avoid, like our failure, for example. But again, we wouldn't have done it because we wouldn't have been able to open. But I think we, myself being kind of guilty of this, like we rely on data, we rely on research, data, information, and sometimes we miss the gut signals. So I know it's overused. I'm sorry, but
no, I like that. And I agree with that. I do agree with that up until a certain point.
Yeah.
Your gut, like, especially when you get so big where you're doing millions and millions of dollars a year, it's like, I feel like I should do that, but let me take a look at the pivotal chart just to make sure that I got the right demographic here, right? Or what something like, but yeah, I definitely trust in your gut 100%, 110%.
And then to your point, like, obviously that's kind of to get into it. And as things scale and as things become more complex, you need data, but it's also something I learned from the consulting job that Adam mentioned, where we were doing M&A from anywhere from like $1 million deals to like almost $1 billion deals, is that you can have all the information and numbers and experts in the world, and it can still fall apart on you pretty easily and fast. So yeah.
Cool.
My one-liner would probably be hold yourself accountable. When you're starting a business and you're leading everybody underneath you, you're accountable for everything. Like, if anything goes wrong, that comes back to you, and you need to make sure everybody knows that. Like, for example, if you make a bad hire, an employee yells at a customer, and then people start talking about how the customer service sucks, that comes back to you and the hiring decision that you made. So you need to hold yourself accountable every step of the way when you're going into entrepreneurship, and understand that everything that goes wrong eventually traces back to you, and you can take steps to mitigate those issues. I don't think a lot of people understand that going into entrepreneurship.
I have no clue.
I think if you actually understand that principle, you will succeed in entrepreneurship.
One of the things I would layer on top of that is the processes, right? So whenever there's issues, or I guess point upstairs, right? We're down here in the basement pretty much doing the podcast, but when I look upstairs, something goes wrong, or client's not happy about something. First thing, I don't even care who did it or what. I go, where's the process? It's like, do we have a process for that? Do we have a process for why that? Oh, we did. Okay. What was the process followed? Then it becomes that accountability and real who's accountable for it, but who's ultimately responsible for that. So that's actually helped us grow even quicker, because it's always my fault at the end of the day. But when you can put a process into place that people have to follow, you can then hold them more accountable, right? What was the first words they said to that customer when they got to the store? Did you have a process written down that, hi, welcome to Kava Co? how might I take you right? Or did you not have a script? Well, that's your fault then.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So that's been a lot of fun because that's like the to get above 5 million in revenue a year, you have to have systems and processes like that. If you don't have that, you're not going to get there.
Totally
Too
agree.
much to manage.
Yeah, pretty much to manage.
Yeah.
All right.
Bring us home, Patrick.
I would say don't put things off waiting for the perfect moment in life. Just go for it. You know, life, like Lucas said earlier, life's never going to get less busy, less easy. And, you know, you'll look back in 10 years and be like, I should have done this 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm. I love that. All right. Well, guys, thank you for coming in today and especially bringing Kava. Excited to see you guys open, hopefully flourish here. It sounds like you guys are setting up a business that's a blue ocean. I describe it, right? Where it's like endless possibilities. You're not competing against a Steven Starr or the latest brewery that opened, right? Like, to me, what you guys are bringing to Philadelphia is unique. Definitely where I'm going to try more of the, like I said, I'm already
leave these
feeling
with
calm.
you help yourself.
Yeah. I can only drink one a day though, according to the can, but, I'm excited to see where you guys go and where your business takes you. And I'm rooting for you. And I appreciate all the guidance and advice you gave the listeners today. Cause I think a lot of what you're saying about how you're getting started, how to just get into it, how to jump, how to hold yourself accountable, like that all matters. And that's stuff that people forget about. And if you do the right things and you know you're doing the right things, you can just go for it.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Really appreciate you having us on. This was a lot of fun. This was all of our first podcast. So this was a great experience.
That's
so thank
awesome.
you very much.
I'll see you guys in 5 years.
Yeah.
We're going to come back.
All right.
We're going to do a review session.
Exactly.
All right.
Check in.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.